welcome to this Yin Yoga class with me, Camilla. I am recording to you from the Netherlands, Rotterdam to be more precise. And today in the class we are going to focus on the different sides. So we're going to do a full set of sequence or a full sequence on the right side, and then we're going to find a neutral position to rebound in before heading to the second side. And the reason I have decided to do it this way today is also for you to experience the poses individually instead of doing one side and then the second side, where the comparison between the two sides are so easy to do. So that way we are doing one side and then we are coming into the same poses but on the second side, and hopefully with less comparison. Enough with the talk of that sort. Let's get into it. What you might need in class today is a block or maybe even two, if you have that. Otherwise, as always, use what you got and let's be creative. First pose we are going to be doing is for the shoulder joint. So right side is where we were beginning. I am on my right hip and extending the right arm straight out to the side to come into open wing. So my arm, the right arm is extended straight out to the side. And I like to begin this pose by having my two knees stacked on top of each other and the other hand kind of just in front of my chest for a bit of support, and it's almost like a bit of security, safety to kind of just hold here. And this being our first pose of the practice, I invite you to begin to close your eyes. If it works, to close the lips, to breathe in and out through the nose. Please do that. And just take this first pose to listen. What is it that you hear in the room where you're practicing? What is it you hear in the house that you are in? And what sounds do you hear from perhaps even outside the house that you're in? As always in poses, about halfway in, if you feel that you want to potentially take it deeper, feel free to do so. For me, often moving my top leg makes more sensation to the shoulder joint. Either keeping hands still into the floor, but this time like pushing a bit more, or what feels quite nice most times for me is to place that hand towards the top leg, the thigh of the top leg. That way the top shoulder, in this case the left shoulder, is a bit more stacked kind of on top of the bottom shoulder. This brings for sure a lot more sensation into the pose, but it's still not sensational. It's always about finding what works for you in the poses, and knowing as always that we're not really using the body to get into poses. It's actually the other way around. that we're using the poses to get into our body. That's why each and everyone's practice is looking different. Because each body is looking different. Each body is unique. And even the sides of our body, the left and the right, is also different from each other. With your next inhale, begin to slowly draw yourself up into a seated position. There's no rush, so allow it to take a bit of time. In today's sequence, however, though, we are kind of moving from one pose straight into the other, even though allowing the transitions to take time. So I'm setting up for the second pose, which is a seated pose, a side bend. So for me, I like to use the block. I'm leaning to my left side because I am going to work on stretching the right side. So I like to place my elbow up on a block on the high edge. That way I can make a fist and I can lean my head into that fist. That way I'm stretching on the right side of my body without making it crazy. We're not using our body to come into these poses. We use the poses to come into the body. And the body is the theme for my practice this week, or the class. This awesome, fantastic body that we all have been given. And I would really like to invite you for the remaining part of the practice, preferably longer, but to just focus on all the awesome stuff. We are, most of us, so good at complaining and noticing all the things with our body that aren't to our liking, that aren't ticking the boxes of how the perfect body should be. And know that most of us feel this way to a certain degree. Regardless if we're looking like the standard or the picture perfect. There's unfortunately often something that we all find to complain about our own bodies. So one quote that is going to be setting the tone maybe for the class goes like this: move your body, feed your body, rest your body, listen to your body, and love your body. It's an account that I've been following in social media for quite some time, posting these whiteboard lessons, short and sweet, and often quite thought provocative in the sense of, maybe we can learn something here. Just a few more rounds of breath in this, the second pose on the first side. So with your next inhale, begin to bring yourself out of the pose. Notice the sensation that might be in the side when you come slowly out of the pose. And maybe you are wanting to have 2 blocks towards the back of your mat. Maybe not. Right leg bends for half saddle pose. Some of you might want to tuck something underneath the ankle on this right leg. Often the foot doesn't need the padding, but the ankle, where there's quite a lot of space for most of us, might want some padding. You can use a blanket, a fold-up sweater, or whatever you might have handy. The knees do not have to be together. And this is a bit of a red zone pose if you have issues with your knees. So my knees are not always happy to be compressed like this. Half saddle works quite often pretty well, but don't push it. If this, what I'm doing already, leaning back into my hands, feels a bit too much for you, sit more upright, and you can even lean towards the straight leg side to have less pressure towards the bent knee. The more weight you bring towards your right buttock, and or the more weight you begin to lean back into your hand, it's also, of course, adding pressure towards your knee. Top of your thigh is the main target area. Some of you have already easily began to lean back, maybe on your elbows, maybe down towards your blocks. Some of us might never go down onto the block, or maybe at least not today. We are beginning to approach half time into the hold. And so, love your body. It's easy to complain. I was looking for the word. To complain about all the things that don't work the way we would want them to. For instance, if we have issues with the knees, we might be complaining or being unhappy that we can't lean backwards, that we can't fold and come to a deeper variation of the hold. But how about we flip the coin? How about instead thinking about the fact that we can even be here, and we can fold our limbs into these pretzel kind of a shape looking things, and that our body is carrying ourselves through our everyday. Our knees are these hinges that enables us to walk, to go up and down stairs. Who cares if we can't easily lean back and come into a deeper variation of a pose. Speaking poses, time to come out of this pose. I'm moving my blocks out of the way since I didn't use them. I like to lean towards the straight leg side and then gently straighten the bent leg. The next pose will be down on the back, so begin to make your way down on your back. And the next pose, both feet into the floor. The right leg is the leg that we're working with, and it's a half happy baby. So begin to bring your knee in towards your chest. And you can begin here. I often like this variation to hug my right knee with my right hand and bring it as close towards my right shoulder as I kind of manage. The left hand is holding on towards my left foot and kind of guiding it towards my groin. The target area for half happy baby is around the buttock, outer hip, and a bit the groin on the leg close towards your chest. The other leg, the left leg, you can keep it bent. I like to allow the knee to move towards the left. So I kind of create quite some space between the knees. The right knee is towards the right side and the left knee falling towards the left. Just listen to what your body is communicating, what it's telling you. Are you feeling stuff around your right leg, around the right hip, inside, outside, backside kind of the hip? Where do you feel it? You are halfway through the hold. And maybe you feel enough and then stay. If you don't feel so much, maybe you want to begin to bring the right foot a bit more into the more typical shape of half happy baby, where the foot moves a bit more up towards the ceiling. If you do take that option, remember to still keep the foot soft and relaxed. You can always also play with the placement of the opposite foot and leg. I still like to keep my leg, the other leg, a bit bent. Listening to the body is almost a bit of a forgotten art. What does it mean to listen to your body? And what does it mean if you can't really hear anything? I often see it as us being more just up in our head rather than into our bodies. That we're spending more time just living up into the head and less time in our actual bodies. With your next exhale, bring the foot all the way down to the floor. And then we're going to do a twist here down onto the back. We're going to allow the knees to drop to the left as I want to stretch the right side. So I move my buttocks a bit to the right before I drop my knees to the left. And I place my knees up on a block. And beginning with the nose up towards the ceiling is a good option for me. And I already begin to feel a bit here on the right side of my back where the twist is targeting. Maybe allow your right arm to extend out. Maybe allow your head to turn or not. Twists are often needing a bit of adjustment to find what works in your body. It should not cause you pain, but I want you to feel a bit of sensation in your spine, in your back. Maybe allow your eyes to close so that you can focus a bit more on how it feels. Allow the breath to go all the way down in your belly. Notice how it feels. You have a bit more than 1 minute in the hold. Maybe you want to take a slightly deeper variation of your twist. You can perhaps allow the top leg to change position to kind of intensify the stretch a bit more. But above all, use your breath. Those deep rounds of breath are like those love notes that you're sending to your body. Spoiling it with a bit of deeper breathing, more air coming in and more air going out. And take 3 more rounds of breath. Once your 3 rounds of breath are completed, begin to come to your back again. It's time for just a rebound. Maybe you want to extend your legs and do a mini shavasana. Or maybe you keep your knees bent. For me, I just widen my feet and allow the knees to come together. Perhaps you place your hands towards your belly and just breathe. How good are you normally at listening to your body? Most of us don't really listen to the body and the signals that our body is giving. Instead, we often look at a time and think, oh, it's time to wake up now in the morning because my alarm went off. It's time to eat my breakfast because I need to leave my home at this time to go to work. We look at the clock to see when it's time for lunch break. We check the clock again to see if it's time to leave to our yoga class or the gym or whatever else we might be doing to activate the body. And then again, we look at a clock when it's to make sure when it's time to cook our dinner. And again, we look at a time to make sure when it's time to go to bed. Listen to the body is something we don't really do. From where you are, roll over onto your side and gently, slowly press yourself back up to seated. As you come to seated, allow your eyes to close and just do a little body check or a body scan. We worked on the right shoulder and not the left shoulder yet. We worked on the right side body and not the left side body yet. We worked on the right quadricep, the front of the thigh. We targeted the right hip. And we targeted the right side of the spine and the back in the twist. Maybe you notice a difference, maybe you don't at all. But just take 2 more rounds of breath to kind of allow yourself to reset. The next side is not meant for comparison. Instead, the right side is meant for the right side. But I meant the left, even though I said the right. So we're going to do the second side, which at least for me will be the left side. So time to come in for that shoulder pose. Lean towards or sit on your left side. Extend the left arm all the way out to the side. Maybe bring the two knees, stack them together. Hand in the floor in front of your chest. Allow your eyes to close. And on this side, I am not going to stay in the poses, but of course I want you to stay in the poses. Move your body, feed your body, rest your body, listen to your body, and love your body. As I was saying before about listening to the body, it is the most important part in order to stay healthy, to avoid injuries, to find balance. The balance of enough, but not too much. In practically everything. Everything from eating and drinking to moving and being in stillness. From being awake to sleeping. And of course in our yoga practice. You are about halfway through the hold. If you want to see if a deeper variation of the pose is a good choice on this side, feel free to move that top leg. Maybe you find a deeper variation of the pose, or maybe you stay where you are, if that is what your body is telling you to do. We avoid pain, but we want to find the discomfort. By listening to the body, we also know when we are in discomfort and when it might border in towards pain. We don't want to go towards pain. We want to stay in the discomfort. Sometimes I'm talking about going into 60 or 70, maybe 75% of your maximum into the pose, but not pushing past that. When we push past the 70-75%, that's when we're beginning to get in towards pain and that kind of sensation, and potentially injury, especially if it's a repetitive pattern that we do to constantly push past the 70-75% of the maximum in a pose. On your next inhale, begin to slowly, yes, take it slowly, come out of the pose and make your way into a seated position. There's no rush. It's simply though that we're not stopping between the poses, but rather just taking the time for the transition. The next pose from seated is the side bend, leaning to the right to stretch the left side. If you had the block, maybe you place the elbow on the block. If you don't have the block, maybe you simply place the hand into the ground and lean into that hand. The other hand can rest on towards one of your knees, whichever feels like a good choice. Try to not allow the left shoulder to fall forward. It's simply leaning to the side, however much or little that kind of comes natural to you. The left hip is also connected still towards the ground, so don't allow it to kind of lift in your desire to side bend. Again, I am not going to stay in the pose, but I invite you to do so, to hold the pose. See if you can begin to find that 60-70% of your max. Most likely, if you were to activate your muscles, you could push yourself into a deeper side bend. But then you go past the 60-70%. Allow the muscles to relax. Allow discomfort, but no pain. And just like the 60-70% is where we want to be, and we don't want to go past the 70-75% of the maximum that we can do in a hold. We also don't want to do much less than 60%, meaning we don't want the pose to just be comfy. That is another style of yoga, which is brilliant as well, but it's not the purpose of the Yin Yoga practice. For good and bad, I often say to my students, as a reminder, Yin Yoga is not comfy yoga. It is this balance of finding the edge of discomfort. Nothing less, nothing more. Complete 2 more rounds of breath in your pose. Once those 2 rounds of breath are completed, bring yourself slowly out of the side bend and begin to transition yourself to have your legs straight. Maybe if it felt okay to lean back, you place your blocks towards the back of your mat. As we're heading into the half saddle pose, that knee pose. So this time, of course, then the left leg is the one that bends. And we are looking for sensation in the right thigh, the front part of the thigh. Again, feel free to use padding underneath the ankle if that feels like a nice option for you. Remember to lean towards the straight leg if it's a lot of sensation bordering towards pain in the bent leg. Maybe you simply need to lean to the straight leg for about a minute or half of the hold, and then you feel that the sensation becomes less intense, And then maybe you don't lean so much to the straight leg, but pretty much just kind of towards the back of your mat. If it feels okay in your body, you can perhaps begin to lean down on your elbows. By listening to the body, you kind of gain the respect from the body, in the sense that it becomes more of a cooperation between you and your body when practicing the yoga, instead of you telling the body, ordering it into certain shapes where the body might actually feel resistance, feel pain, feel that it's not safe to go further. So the muscles have two main priorities or functions. One is to create movement. Basically that we can walk and stand and run and do yoga and all of these kind of things. They are there to create movement. And the second main purpose is to provide stability and support for the joints in the body. And when we practice Yin Yoga, which is yoga for the joints, for the connective tissue, so the joints, the tendons, the ligaments, we want to be able to access the joints, meaning that we need for the muscles to kind of back off, to stop kind of protecting the joint. And this is where we're looking for that delicate balance, the 60 to 70, maybe 75%, where the muscles can relax, to not step in and protect the joint, so that we can create that stretching, compression, or whatever it might be that we're looking to do. From your half saddle pose, lean to the straight leg. If you're down on your back, you can do it also just kind of to straighten the leg. And beginning to come all the way down on your back. And again, here, feet into the floor, knees bent. Invite the left leg, and maybe you do like we did on the first side, meaning left hand holds to the left knee and the right hand holds to the foot. The left knee comes fairly close towards the left shoulder, whereas the foot sort of stays down towards the groin. Notice what works for you in this pose. Listen to the sensations in your body. For a lot of us, we're holding a lot of tension, tightness around the hips. So this pose, targeting that area, is quite often, for a lot of us, quite sensational. So listen how it feels for you right now. Maybe you feel enough sensation where you are, then stay. You can allow that right leg to extend or move a bit further out to the right side. And or you can allow the left foot to move away from the groin and lift it up towards the ceiling. Keeping the left knee still bent, as close towards the shoulder or the armpit kind of as possible. Hold on to the foot or hold on to the ankle or the shin bone, whenever you kind of reach with your left hand. The target area is around the hip, backside, outside, inside of the hip. Move your body. Our bodies are built for movement. And what do we do with our bodies, most of us? We sit still. And when the body might be complaining about back pain or stiffness here or there, not even then are we very often creating the movement that it needs or that it wants. Basically, we give the body orders that makes no sense. And just like we need the yin in our life, we also need the yang. It's a balance. As you exhale next, allow that left foot to drop all the way down to the floor, both knees bent. As we make the way into the last pose before Shavasana, and it's the twist. So allow your buttocks maybe to move a bit towards the left before you drop your knees all the way over towards the right. I use a prop underneath the knees. And I allow, in the beginning, just my left arm to extend out to the side as the nose is pointing up towards the ceiling. Straight up, for me, I feel a bit of a sensation around my left hip and kind of left side of the waist. Nothing painful, but some sensations. Again, I'm not staying in the pose, but I invite you to. So see and notice where you feel possible sensation in your twist. Feel free to adjust the pose as needed to find that 60-70% sensation where you can still relax, but you still feel a bit of pulling around your left waist. Or maybe you feel it a bit more up towards the left chest, especially if you allow the left arm to extend out to the side or maybe diagonally away from the knees, so the left arm is moving more towards the top left corner of your mat. I don't know about you, but for me or for us during these weeks of Corona and lockdown, we have been playing a bit more with this notion of listening to the body. For instance, we have not woken up by the alarm, I think not even one morning, but allowed ourselves to wake up kind of by ourselves. Which means for us that we wake up most days after 7, but definitely before 8. Some days we've been waking up 6:45, and some days, oh my god, woke up, I think it was 8:20, 8:30 one day, and both of us were almost in shock. And a bit more allowing hunger to be the key to when to have lunch. Not just what time is it time for lunch? Sometimes listening to the body can be interesting. Am I really hungry even though it's noon and time for lunch? With your next inhale, slowly come out of your twist and make your way in towards Shavasana. If you want to do a traditional one on your back, set yourself up for that. If you want to do a seated Shavasana, feel free to adjust yourself into a seated position instead. Maybe if you're on your back, you'd like to cover your eyes with an eye pillow. Make sure that you're not cold. And begin to find your stillness. If you're down on your back, or if you're in the seated position, find your stillness. Allow your eyes to close. Allow yourself to listen to your body. Is there anything you can do to make yourself 5 or maybe even 10% more comfortable? In which case, perhaps allow yourself to do that. Once you've come into that place of a bit more comfort, allow your body to soften and relax. Allow the body to become more heavy. The limbs of your body are heavy. Allow the hips and the buttocks to be just heavy. Your belly is soft. There's a slight movement with your belly as you breathe. Your shoulders, your shoulder blades are heavy on the back. The face relaxes. The jaw relaxes. There's a little space between the upper row of teeth and the lower row of teeth. The tongue is relaxed. And space between the eyebrows is relaxed. There's no wrinkle of worry or irritation or concentration. The forehead is smooth. Allow your body to rest. Rest is different from sleep. The rest after the yoga is where it's all coming together. The body is given time to restore, to recharge, to relax. If you want to stay longer on your back, honor that. When you want to complete your session, your practice, roll to your side. Laying on the side with the knees to the chest for a few rounds of breath. Before eventually pushing yourself to a seated position. If you want to continue into a pranayama or a meditation sitting, honor your practice. When you want to complete your practice, bring your hands together in front of your heart. Thank your awesome body for all it does for you. On your mat, maybe more importantly, off your mat. Namaste.